Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and appreciate the witnesses' time and being here today. It's an easy issue for most of us, at least it is for me. I mean, as a matter of principle, federal law says these folks, once convicted and subject to removal as a matter of federal law, you ought to have cooperation and communication among the various levels of government in order to effectuate the purpose of federal law. That's not a particularly difficult concept. I recognize, I was a state official for 2 decades. I recognize what's essentially a states' rights argument on the other side, the anti-commandeering doctrine and the theory, the idea, the legal principles that there are limits on what the federal government can do to compel states to do things they don't want to do. And I've always kind of thought in this space, the way I've looked at it is that, states and locals probably, as a general matter, have the ability to stand by and not be terribly helpful, but they don't have the ability to actively impede, either by action or omission, the enforcement of federal law. And Sheriff, you're in the middle of the bullseye right now as all this intersects. Do you look at it in a similar way, or how do you draw that line?
Yeah, I look at it's very similar, but the problem that we face in Washington State and sanctuary policies, I mean, we talk about Chicago. I'll go back to Chicago. We had an illegal immigrant come to Chicago with his wife and kill her in our county, right, a few years ago. It affects us on a huge scale to not be able to communicate with another law enforcement entity. We got to stop these things that's called defund the police, and now because one side has control or whatever, now all of a sudden we have a situation where ICE is the bad guy, and now we got to get rid of ICE. We're a federal, state, local, federal should be working together on all these for law enforcement perspective to find solutions for our communities.
Amen, Sheriff, and I feel for you. I've been there. I've shared with this committee, the full committee, I think it was just a few weeks ago, a case we had a number of years ago where an illegal alien was convicted of DUI in California a number of years earlier and then came to our jurisdiction, and some years later drove drunk again and killed a sheriff's deputy in the course of doing that. And I went back and double-checked prior to this hearing, and sure enough, there's at least no record that the California authorities, when they released that fellow from their state jurisdiction or local, I don't know what it was, had ever communicated with ICE. There was no detainer request, no record. And so, what happened in California didn't stay in California. It came to my state and killed a young law enforcement officer. So we have an interest in each other's handling of this, and it's perhaps a profound interest. I want to ask you a question. I'm lucky I live in a state that's, my situation was just opposite of yours. While I served as our Attorney General, I had some local jurisdictions that wanted to become safe and welcoming, as they euphemistically put it. And I wound up working with our legislature. We got a statute enacted that preempted all of that local authority and, in fact, affirmatively obligates them to comply with federal law, to communicate with federal agents. And we fixed our problem, but I empathize you're not in a posture you can get that done. I want to ask you the other side of the coin. This is a little out of scope, so I'll start with Mr. Howman, and then if we have time, Mr. Wagner and Howard. So it just strikes me there's a strange juxtaposition here. On the one hand, the feds are limited in how we can put guardrails around state decisions in terms of becoming sanctuaries, non-cooperation. But on the other hand, the federal government has almost entirely preempted states that want to cooperate, that want to enforce their own state law as to immigration, consistent, not in conflict with federal law. We said you can't do that, and there's Supreme Court cases on point largely. That's not a constitutional function. It's a function of decisions made by this body. It's statutory preemption. And I'm just wondering if, sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander, and as we're trying to figure out how we fix the sanctuary problem, should we also be talking about easing up on preemption so that states or locals that want to be helpful in immigration enforcement, enforcement of federal law, parallel enforcement, enactment, enforcement of state laws, should be able to do that. And Mr. Hamilton, what do you think about that?
Well, again, under President Trump, one of the key things he's done, I mean, it's not a new or unique authority that would be expanded, but again, 287 agreements.
I know, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
287G requires a partnership and agreement between the federal government and the states, so when you have a hostile federal administration, they just stop agreeing. I'm talking about actually easing some of the preemption provisions that are in the INA so that states that want to enact and enforce laws that are consistent
Mr.
with federal
Chairman,
policies may do
this is
so.
time. We just need to be consistent. We just need to be consistent, Mr. Chairman. If you're going to cut off my witness, then I expect that you would. Thank you.